enter the Teams meeting, can you also admit them?
Yeah, sure.
You will manage that. Perfect. Thank you. So let's start it. This is a workshop organized by Concordia project. Okay, Concordia is one of the large cybersecurity pilots funded by European Commission, and the focus of this workshop is the future of the threat intelligence and information sharing for financial services. Okay, I'm Ramon Martín de Pozuelo from CAIXABANk, and I'm part of the team of the Security Innovation and Transformation team that is sorry, 1 second. That is led by Mario Mawat, my director, who is also involved in the project. The agenda for the workshop, I will start with this presentation about the needs of threat intelligence information sharing in our sector, in the financial services. And then we will move on with the presentation from ENISA about the upcoming regulation changes of DORA and NIS. And we'll have as well the participation of FS-ISAC with John Solomon, who that will present this public-private collaboration and crisis response development, sharing an impact from European regulations for starters. And then we will have as well the collaboration of INTESA San Paolo with Andrea Mastrigli, who will present the Threat Intelligence Information Exchange, the practitioner's view. Okay, another practitioner's view apart from those ones that we are participating in Concordia. After that, I will explain a little bit one of the things that we are doing in Concordia about this financial threat intelligence sharing pilot that we are doing in collaboration with ATOS, and we will present it with Jose, and we will have a brief platform demo of what we have been doing so far. And after all that, we will have this panel discussion and that we will let you have some questions and answers as well. So we can move on. So which are the needs on the financial services sector about this threat intelligence information sharing? It's very similar of the needs of all the sectors. Actually, it's not a problem that we have only in financial sector. Okay, I will go into that on why is the particularities of the financial sector, but we have these cyber threats and risk in the financial sector that we are very aware of the digital transformation and the technological development that are bringing up those new cyber threats, and we are very active sector in preventing, because we are very keen on attacks that we're having every day, because it's one of the most target sectors. But are we seeing the whole elephant? Are we seeing all the picture? Not. We are seeing only the local picture, and we want to have more information in order to prevent better from those attacks. So what makes cyber threat intelligence in financial services special? As I said, there are some particularities. Okay. On the one hand, as I said, we are one of the most target sectors on those cyber attacks. And on the other hand, is that we not only have the typical cybersecurity attacks related to ransomware or DDoS or so on, but we have also financial fraud and crime attacks that are affecting us and our clients. So what if we can not only share this information of a potential phishing, part of a ransomware pattern, or so on, but to share with others if a customer is trustworthy or if a transaction is potentially fraudulent transaction. So at the end, we have to go from data to intelligence, and to have those decisions about what is a potential risk for us and for our clients, and you have to automate it. Okay, that is exactly the same as in other sectors. You have a lot of information and you have to automate it in order to have to take some decisions, because the amount of information that we have and we collect from all the sources and all the clients and so on is huge, and you cannot manage it manually. Okay. Apart from that, we have the problems of heterogeneous data, heterogeneous format, heterogeneous sources, even heterogeneous regulation between different countries. Well, yeah. Even if there is an initiatives on homogenizing these regulations, there are some specifications on those regulations that make them different. On the other hand, the most important, trust. Okay, to share information, you have to trust the other, and we are a sector that are very, very reluctant to trust other information, and even if you have a very close relationship with another partner, and you trust them, how good are their data? Are those partners collecting the data the same way that you do? Can you completely trust the data that they are sharing to you? So this is another need, okay, to increase this trust. And one of the things that we are here is that we need about these threat information platforms to share information. So we need means to share the information, actually. Okay, how these platforms are managed, if it's a centralized control, distributed control, if it's managed at the entity level, or a role-based, very granular role-based at the entity level, if it's a federated authentication between all the partners, specific groups for sharing, or very generic ones. Those are a lot of things, a lot of dopes, a lot of questions that we have to resolve before going into depth on how that collaboration platform should work. Okay. So basically, and summarizing my intervention about the needs of the financial sector, I present here some opportunities that we think that this information sharing is providing to the financial sector, and the main barriers, okay, that are the ones that I have said in the short presentation. On the one hand, it can help us to secure our infrastructure, because more information means that I can have more alerts to be more secure. I can be I can have more information about the clients, about who could be potentially fraudulent client or not, and also prevent the attacks to our clients. And at the end, it's a very collaborative way of work that can help us to identify earlier and react faster to those attacks. The typical cyber attacks, and also the cyber fraud. But as well, we have a lot of information, and we can also envisage to have potential additional revenues for providing this information. But there is not a mature market yet around this threat intelligence. Why? Well, because of these barriers that we commented: trust, the heterogeneity of data, and the heterogeneity of sources, the heterogeneity of ways to collect the information, and the heterogeneity of regulations in some cases, and the data sensitivity. We are very, very reluctant to share specific data because we are, it's very sensitive data from the clients in some cases that we are under some regulations that we cannot share it just in some specific cases. And well, we are a highly regulated sector, and that these cases are specified. These cases that I said that for sharing the data, and the data volume. We have a huge amount of terabytes of petabytes of information of all the transactions, all the operations that our clients are doing day by day, and it's very difficult to manage that. So we have a very short survey that we want to share with you. If you, Mario, can share this URL with participants of the workshop, and then you can answer it. It's very short, so you can answer it in very few minutes. If you want, we can do so now all together. I can go as well to the survey. So we propose to go to it now. The password, I will share it. Well, I will share it here in the chat, the URL and the password, so you can all enter it. Okay, 1 second. I'll just has already provided it. Okay, perfect. So the ones that you have not entered to the survey, please enter to it, and you will have some minutes to do so. Okay. In the meantime, I will introduce Rosen and Maria. We have already Rosen and Maria here.
Yes, hello.
Hi, perfect. So I don't know if you are already ready for the presentation. You want to share your screen?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. I stop sharing my screen, and you can share yours.
First of all, I'd like to let you know that there's a storm forming right here. So if you see any flashes of light or hear any sounds, do not be alarmed.
Okay. No, by now it's very quiet there, and we hear you very well.
Great. And now you must be able to see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
So the floor is yours. Yeah.
You see the slides, right? I don't get the board on the screen I'm sharing. Okay, great. So hi everyone. By way of introduction, my name is Maribor Filipou. Many of you might not know me. I'm a cybersecurity officer at the Policy Development and Implementation Unit, ENISA's PDI. And I'm here to discuss the upcoming regulation changes and details on information sharing. We've seen the need for information sharing, and I hopefully will provide a starting point with these regulations, since it seems to be key to improve resilience against cyber attacks. So I'll go through the revision of the ENISA directive, the ENISA 2, and the proposed Digital Operational Resilience Act, or DORA in short. First of all, I'll go through the ENISA revision's main objectives, which is to mainly cover a larger portion of society and economy, replace the current identification process for entities mainly to focus on bigger and more critical players, align, of course, the cybersecurity requirements, which is a major challenge, and streamline incident reporting obligations, which is also a major challenge since there are many regulations obligating reporting of incidents and subsequently information sharing. Of course, to align provisions on national supervision and enforcement and the requirements of other directives and regulations, such as the Resilience of Critical Entities Directive and DORA. This slide shows mainly an overview of the sectors covered in the revision of the NIS. They are classified into essential and important entities, and the red text shows the sectors, the new sectors to be added in the directive. For example, social networks or food. Just a short overview to understand the expansion of the NIS scope. Moving on to the NIS key considerations on information sharing now. The directive mandates the existence of the cooperation group and the CSERS network as we know it. The single point of contact, and now the establishment of an information sharing arrangements framework between the entities, the voluntary information sharing and peer reviews for the member states' cybersecurity policies. Furthermore, with regards to the incident reporting and the need for harmonization, entities now need to report both significant incidents and threats. They also need to inform recipients of their services in case there is an incident. The incident notification remains in 3 stages: the initial, intermediate, and final report. And of course, the member states need to inform each other and ENISA in case they are affected by a cross-border incident. I should also mention here the requirements for crisis management, which are interlinked. There will be the establishment of the National Cybersecurity Crisis Management Frameworks and the Cyclone or the European Cyber Crisis Liaison Organization Network in support of the coordinated management of large-scale incidents and crises. Also, with the requirements which are also linked to information sharing are the coordinated vulnerability disclosure and supply chain security. As far as vulnerability disclosure goes, the NIS mandates that member states' national cybersecurity strategies now include the policy framework on coordinated vulnerability disclosure. Each member state needs to designate a national CSERT which will act as a coordinator and facilitator of the vulnerability disclosure process at a national level. And in case the reported vulnerability affects multiple vendors across the Union, the designated CSERT will need to cooperate with the CSERT network to facilitate multi-vendor vulnerability disclosure. And finally, an EU vulnerability registry will be maintained by ENISA. And now moving on to the hot topic of supply chain security. And it is now mandated that it will be mandated that essential and important entities will need to consider it and implement relevant measures. Member states' national cybersecurity strategies will be required to address supply chain security for essential and important services. And the cooperation group is explicitly empowered to carry out coordinated security risk assessments for critical services, systems, or products. Moving on now to the proposed regulation, DORA. I know it is a complex topic. DORA covers many domains such as risk management, incidents, resilience testing, third-party risk, information sharing arrangements, and provisions for competent authorities. But now I will focus on the provisions relating to information sharing. But let me first introduce DORA, for those of you who might not know. The Digital Operational Resilience Act aims to achieve a high common level of digital operational resilience across the financial ecosystem, and it's the first regulation that encompasses one single sector. The important thing to consider is that it's lex specialis to the provisions of the ENISA directive, including the revision of the ENISA directive, so these two need. This is a bit tricky and requires alignment. The key considerations regarding information sharing and incident reporting by order of appearance in the text in DORA, I will go through them briefly. DORA mentions incidents, major incidents. I need to note that it's about major incidents, and it will mandate regulatory technical standards, or ATOS, for the criteria and thresholds for major incidents. The details of major incidents will be communicated to the single point of contact designated under the ENISA. There will be regulatory technical standards for the harmonization of the reporting content and templates to streamline reporting requirements, and hopefully the centralization of reporting through a single EU hub for major incident reporting. One important topic introduced by DORA is also the threat-led penetration testing, the advanced testing mentioned in the text, which is expected to cover critical and important functions, and testing will need to be carried out every 3 years. There will be regulatory technical standards for the set test scope, methodology, and results, and the regulation mandates that testers are independent, suitable, reputable, and skilled. Furthermore, again, third-party risk, DORA will mandate that there's a strategy, entities have a strategy on third-party risk management. There will be regulatory standards for the policy on the use of services provided by third parties. A register of information will be established, which will contain all contractual agreements on the use of services by third parties that are supporting critical functions, in order to identify concentration risk by critical third-party service, by the identified critical third-party service providers. And finally, an oversight body will be established that will have direct oversight over the identified critical third-party service providers. And last, information sharing. DORA will mandate that information is shared with regards to threat and intelligence, in order to raise awareness and create trusted communities for both the financial entities and the third-party service providers. And it is expected to define the conditions for the participation and details of involvement regarding these information sharing arrangements. Thank you very much. I hope I have provided an overview of a starting point to information sharing, and I'd be happy to take any questions now.
Thank you very much, Maria. We are very on time actually, so if any attendant want to make any question, I think that we can have some minutes for that. In any case, we will have at the end a panel in which I will make you some questions, and also the participants can also do them. But if
I will need to step out for a while, but I'll be back for the panel discussion. And I believe Rosen will be there as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone wants to have any question to Maria? No? Okay. Okay, so in that case, we will continue with the presentation for John Solomon from FS-ISAC. Hi, John.
Hi there. Let's see, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I have 15 minutes. I'll try to keep it on time. A lot of information. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is John Solomon. I'm located about 60 kilometers to the west of where Mario and his team sit in Catalonia. Bon dia, tots. I am the regional coordinator for FS-ISAC in continental Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. Some of you may have hopefully heard of our organization. We're the global not-for-profit consortium coordinating information sharing and resilience development in the financial sector. And my responsibility is to ensure our various strategic activities, stakeholder development, etc., in the EMEA region. So what I'd like to do today is to talk a little bit shortly about the regulatory aspect behind this that drives a lot of this. More importantly, the types of collaboration and public-private partnerships that are currently one of the major topics in the financial sector, not only in Europe but also in other regions around the world. This is a major part and a huge development in the last 5 years. That we've seen increasingly grow, not only in terms of operational collaboration and cooperation, but also at a more fundamental level, whether it's in shaping and implementing regulations, whether it's in fundamental structural changes and support for overall more maturity for the financial sector as a part of critical national infrastructure. My PowerPoint has a tendency to misbehave, so I apologize. I'll try to make sure it works nicely. I don't want to spend too much time on the actual details. There's a lot of good papers on this. Our friends at ENISA have done a very good job at helping to communicate the significance of a lot of these. I spend a lot of my time explaining to our stakeholders in places like Singapore, Australia, the United States, Latin America, what's the significance of European regulations. You may be aware that, especially in the United States, some of the American regulators, they're very, very happy to fine firms for violating good practices and for just not doing the right thing. In Europe, overall, we tend to take a much more prescriptive approach, which I think is a good thing for reasons I'll get into. And what we've seen is a growth in the breadth and I think sophistication of regulations as drivers of sectoral risk management capability. I do recommend, we have no stake in this, but I do recommend, for example, if you're just starting with DORA, also the Deloitte paper that gives kind of a high-level introductions to it for dummies. I've used that quite a bit. But as mentioned, there are quite a few good resources on these. I think what's important to note here is the trend that we've seen towards, again, the understanding of financial services as a part of critical national infrastructure, as well as increasingly actionable guidance on how the financial sector can and should increase its own maturity at all levels. So not only the large international firms and financial market infrastructure providers, but also smaller organizations, because overall we are part of this overall societal ecosystem and set of capabilities. If you are, especially at the more policy and compliance level, but also if, for example, if you're on the operational threat intel level, this can seem very frustrating and bureaucratic. But fundamentally, I believe this is a good thing. So why is this important for public-private collaboration? I think the first thing to think about is, why are we here? Where are we? And in terms of threat information sharing, not only, but also things like exercises and generally collaboration, we've seen a move from essentially at the far left, the geeks back in the 90s, deciding that, we're going to talk with our peers at other companies, moving towards the ultimate goal, the holy grail, which is that this is a business value driver. Fundamentally, the financial sector exists to make money. It's private sector firms like any. There's a profit motive, shareholder value, et cetera, et cetera. But this is how you motivate people to invest in what we as practitioners and experts know is a good thing. Right now, we're at the point where I think the regulators increasingly recognize that if we don't regulate this, we don't make good rules, things will go bad. And we as companies internally recognize that if we don't do this, we are going to lose money. Yeah. These regulatory drivers are still evolving. And I think a big part of the issue is what I like to call platformitis. It's a bit of a disease sometimes, and i.e., let's start a working group, let's develop a tip, let's issue a regulation without really thinking about why, or what is there already. It doesn't solve the problem. It is a very, very complex set of capabilities that take a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of frustration to develop, that take trust, norms, processes, relationships, and experience, but also structure. And that's where the regulations come in, because all the norms and all the relationships, all the fuzzy bits, they don't matter unless you have rules that motivate people to do these in the first place. The platforms, to a large degree, already exist, although there is always going to be an evolution, additions to the structural elements of information sharing and collaboration. My organization, FS-ISAC, many of you are members. This is one of these platforms. The European FI-ISAC, for example, the various national sharing initiatives. There are a lot of tips out there. There's a lot of products that already exist. And there, I have to say, in Europe, we do have a tendency, and by the way, despite my accent, I am Swiss, so I do get to say we, sort of. We do have a tendency sometimes to reinvent the wheel, although I think we're getting better at this, to work together to more integrate existing components and capabilities. So one trend that we're seeing is that regulatory requirements are driving the adoption of better risk management practices in private sector firms. And this is where you see this shift from things being done because we have to, it's the law, to we have to because it's the right thing to do. The next step, as I mentioned, for companies is to start doing this more as a commercial driver, convincing your management, your CFO, your CEO that, well, if we do this, we'll be better placed to be business-wise successful, right? But, why are these regulations where they are? Right now, it's a tool for us to be able to do the things that we do and to get the investment for them. And those regulations are good when first of all, there's a good reason for them. We don't just do them because it seemed like a good idea. It's Tuesday, let's have a new cybersecurity regulation. They fill a gap, right? Somebody is not doing something they should. Something that one of my former employees used to call a security debt or a technology debt. We've ignored it because we can, and now the regulator is saying we have to do this. Second, they're actionable and pragmatic. Singapore is for me the non plus ultra of this. The monetary authority is very, very good at issuing guidances and rules that organizations are actually able to implement rather than having kind of fuzzy, overly complex goals. This is something we should all strive towards. And third, as I mentioned, they drive private sector firms to do the right thing when the commercial motivation isn't there yet. And I say this as a former information security senior manager. This is a very good tool for me. I could get investment for things that I knew that would protect the organization, which the business didn't really feel were important, because I could say, well, the regulator says we have to do this. So public sector entities are still learning the same way that the private sector is still figuring out what they should be doing. Regulation in Europe has become much more practical, and European entities are becoming much better at this. Since the original NIS directive back in 2013-14, the interaction and exchange between the European entities and also the national entities and the sector has become much more pragmatic and much more open. For example, the requirements for just prescriptive, you have to do X, you have to do Y, without a good reason for them, without a fundamental so what, has decreased significantly. And again, I have to give a shout out to our friends at ENISA for being a good facilitator of the kind of dialogue that helps to drive this. And I know that, Rawson and ENISA is probably royally sick of me, providing long feedback to everything every time there's a request for input. But it's a good thing, because it also helps the private sector learn what are the rationales, the reasons behind coming up with frameworks like this, right? And I think what's important here is that we all together with our public sector partners learn how to integrate these rules and the structures that they mandate into the desired end state, which is better security maturity. And why? I think there was a comment about the financial services industry. Why are we where we are? We are the best funded. We are the most mature. We've been doing this for the longest time, right? We are not the most critical. There are other industries, critical national industry sectors, that have much more immediate impact if they're hit by, for example, state actor ransomware. Healthcare, the Irish healthcare system being taken down. Aviation, planes crash, people die, right? But the financial sector is a major aspect of critical national infrastructure, and if we are destabilized, then there are problems. The same as with, for example, communications and media, it can cause electoral disruption, which is not necessarily immediate. If there's a disinformation campaign, but it has significant impact on society. So I think every organization has kind of a duty to engage in good cybersecurity risk management, and public-private collaboration and implementation of regulatory requirements is a big part of that. And this applies both at an individual company level as well as at a societal level, a countrywide level, or in our case, an EU-wide level. And in order to manage risk and increase robustness, you need a good controls framework, right? And this can include at a tactical level, cyber hygiene, internal processes, responsibilities, etc., but also complementary controls like testing, right? How do I evaluate this? How do I exercise? And this is where we want to go to the specific activities that are currently underway in Europe in terms of actual public-private collaboration. A few words, sorry, like I said, my PowerPoint is a bit misbehaving here. My mouse is very sensitive. So let's talk about a few examples that are going on right now. So, I mentioned FS-ISAC. We obviously have a self-interest in this because we want to drive an increase in the breadth and depth of the FS-ISAC membership. Right now, a lot of you are involved in Log4j countermeasures, for example. The more members we have, and the more members and the more trust we have, the easier it is to reach out and involve people in countermeasures for this kind of stuff. It doesn't work unless you are able to have every organization evaluate its own weaknesses, and that is, security testing. That is Tiber is a good example. A lot of countries are implementing this. We've provided support for the Danish and the Finnish Tiber threat landscapes, for example. You need tools where not only does the public sector mandate this, but the private sector is able to provide input in how this should be done. And that's also, on the good practices side. Now, I don't have a specific example here because there's so many of them, but, when for example, a regulator can say not necessarily you have to do X, Y, Z. If you want to take a good example of a very tactical, very detailed framework, I recommend the one that the Central Bank of Jordan issued in February. It's very, very detailed. It's quite good. But it's good to at least have guidance that the private sector organization can implement, and to say we should be doing this, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because the regulator said we have to. We have a lot of activities going on in terms of critical incident response coordination. Yeah, so for example, on the FS-ISACs, I know there's quite a few things going on at a European side. Cyclone, I think, was mentioned earlier. We have a couple of frameworks in progress called Schumann for development of a European-wide public-private crisis response framework, and of course our all hazards framework, which is available to everybody, that we can build national playbooks on together with public sector partners. And exercises. This is a big one. Europe does not currently have a European-wide financial sector public-private crisis response exercise. We don't have one. There's a couple out there, but there is nothing that is dedicated Europe-wide. So what we're doing right now is we're representing the financial sector in the NATO Locked Shields exercise, like we already have for 2021, and we're doing this in 2022. And the idea here is not just to work with the regulators, but also with the military entities to help integrate the financial sector as part of critical national infrastructure. And lastly, I think where the regulator comes in and the public sector really has a major role is in things like talent development. There's a huge list here of things like, the public sector that governments can support to help reduce risk in the financial sector, in the private industry. We have a scholarship for increasing the density of women in cybersecurity called Building Cybersecurity Diversity. There's a ton of other initiatives about, but fundamentally, I think this is where if the private sector doesn't do it on its own, this is, I think, where government can help, and whether it's by dissemination, sharing information, and also hearing from industry where are the gaps. And I think a fundamental part of this is to ensure that public sector entities are aware of existing organizations. So in our case, we've been talking to ENISA and the FS-ISAC for years, and my accent doesn't help, but helping to understand that there are already resources that you can draw on as opposed to having to invest in reinventing stuff, and integrating existing sharing arrangements, communities, and platforms into what you're developing to support the private sector. The next step, I think, in evolving this is to develop operational collaboration, the so what part of sharing and collective defense I mentioned earlier. Sharing doesn't matter unless it has a good reason for existing, and for us, it's self-evident. Sharing is good. We have to share information. We have to collaborate, but I think we have to better communicate the contribution that it makes to robustness and risk reduction, and this can come from the public sector in terms of their regulatory drivers. When somebody comes up with DORA or NIS2, a big part of that is saying, well, we're doing this because, for example, you haven't paid enough attention to supply chain risk. Lastly, funding. That's always been an issue. I mean, I have to say, having gone through the Horizon 2020 funding process myself, it can be quite nightmarish and Byzantine. And I think this is one area where the public sector can improve, because very often the resources are not there in the private sector, oddly enough. And I think this is an area where the public sector could become much more agile and flexible in terms of supporting private sector capability developments. I want to leave you with that. This has only been a very, very quick partial overview. I know there's a lot of information. I could talk about this for days. What I do want to leave you with is the concept, I think, fundamentally the message is that it's getting better. We have very, very good regulatory frameworks, either already in existence or in development. The public sector is listening increasingly, both at a European level and at a national level. And I think for us as private sector entities, the most important thing is to get involved, to communicate, to yell, to make noise, because like citizens in any democratic process, we are stakeholders in the development of these public-private activities, and we really need to make ourselves heard by participating in exercises, working groups, sharing initiatives, and helping to develop these capabilities. I'll leave you with my contact details. I welcome any questions, any comments. If you want to talk about this at more length, I think I've gone over a bit. I apologize. Please feel free to reach out to me, and hand it back to my host. Thank you for allowing me to join you here.
Thank you so much, John, for the presentation. In order to move on with the workshop, I now give the word to Andrea.
Perfect. No questions? No.
Yeah, if you have any question to John or any other questions for the previous presenters, you can also do it in the chat, and we can comment them in the question and answers and the panel session. I think that it will be better in order to move forward with the workshop.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Mastrilli. I am the head of Business Continuity, Global Resilience and Crisis Management Office for INTESA San Paolo. We have 100,000 employees and a global world branches and hub coverage around the world. I would like to show you a project that we started in 2019, which aims to standardize incident communication in the first instance, and which will constitute a new source of threat intelligence. This project is called CyberSec for Europe, and as you know, a single incident might entail for a single financial institution the need to report to multiple supervisors authorities, coping with the different impact assessment criteria, threshold, timing, dataset, communication means, and template. To overcome the regulatory fragmentation, the Common Application Project into the consortium is aimed at support financial institutions in the management of incident reporting requirement, working specifically on the output that should be provided to the competent authority to be produced the appropriate format required by different authorities. The CyberSec for Europe consortium was launched in February 2019 and has a duration of 42 months, lasting I think until July 2022. Starting from the work done with this project, the common application, it could be worth creating a common taxonomy and a common methodology that the whole stakeholder will follow to report an incident. This means to create an open, comprehensive and flexible standard that stakeholders involved will use when reporting an ICT incident, possibly to an international and cross-sector level, we hope. With the practitioner working group, we are strongly committed to support this standard, working with the European institution in a logic of a public-private partnership. The initiative could also be extended at cross-sector level. The potential of introduction of the hub foreseen with DORA could be to support the introduction of a recognized standard for incident reporting. The first purpose is defined in our vision a standard taxonomy. As you know, a standard taxonomy will be used in the event detection and the impact analysis, should represent the starting point in order to define an incident reporting standard. The second purpose is define a standard methodology. The use of an open and flexible methodology in order to evaluate and classify the incident, take a univocal incident reporting. It means to consider different evaluation criteria and threshold for incident classification in order to ensure an incident classification immediately comparable and recognizable by all the stakeholders involved. We think furthermore they could bring a high benefit in info sharing and crisis management context, easing the collaboration among institutions and authorities across Europe. So, to summarize the key message we want to propose, for the first point is a standardization of incident reporting. The second point is incident reporting as a bidirectional channel, increase cooperation among private sector and supervisors across Europe. Last but not the least, leverage the DORA proposal to address specific issue on the line frauds towards customers. Going on, we share the architecture of the common application implemented in beta version right now. As you can see, is composed from open source component connected with the component developed internally. As you can see, some of the data collection by tool can be shared like a threat intelligence platform tips. The objective of this data sharing is to help other stakeholders in their threat intelligence analysis, with the aim of improving an incident detection and management processes. Some data, as you can see, can be shared only inside financial institution. Going on, some of data collection by the tool can be shared and like an info sharing, a common and unique taxonomy, and what we will be used in the event detection. In the impact analysis should represent the starting point in order to define an incident reporting standard. Take that to unequivocal incident reporting. As a consequence, the reporting will be ambiguously unequivocal. A common lexicon promotes consistency, as you know, and alignment across all markets. Going on, using a common taxonomy and a methodology, ensuring an incident classification immediately comparable takes to unequivocal incident reporting. It's also easy info sharing, be data comparable and with a common shared interpretation. Data share can become the base of essential and useful information for threat intelligence, also to predict the type of attack that could be launched in the future. We are working to implement another vision in Intesa San Paolo, a global resilience model, or better, the evolution of a global resilience model, using the threat intelligence to provide a preventive advantages for event management, developing a new version of global resilience. What we are doing, we are searching the right sources of data collection, external sources, info sharing about event or threat occurred, external sources, OSINT or closing monitoring, and another internal source analyzing events occurring in the past with the incident management. We have the purpose to implement an algorithm able to correlate the data from the both external and internal sources, analyze event occurring and probability of occurrence in the future, identify for the last the source risk and area most at the risk. So this is the vision of Intesa San Paolo, and we must apply a risk-based analysis, help to identify the area of risk. Starting from this point, it's possible to plan a risk mitigation activity and help to achieve a more aware, timely, and effective event management. A more resilient company, let me say. I don't know if you have any questions about this vision.
Any question to Andrea and his presentation? I think we have time. No? Okay. Remember that you can also do it through the chat afterwards, and we can collect those questions in order to discuss them in the panel. Okay, so I will move forward with the other presentation that we have from Concordia. 1 second. Sharing screen. Okay, that is this one is more related to the concrete work that we are doing. Oh, sorry, no, I don't. Sorry, I don't share it. I will. Jose will share it. Has the complete one. Jose, you.
Yeah, let me 1 moment. Okay. 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 I think that you can see now the screen, right?
Yeah, we can see the screen, not in full screen.
Okay.
Yeah, now yes, yeah. Perfect. So I will start with the presentation, and then Jose will go through the different, well, through the technical details of the implementation that we are doing in Concordia, and afterwards we have a brief demo that Jose and Esteban will do. Okay, so you can move on, Jose.
Okay, now sorry.
Okay. So as we have said, we have a pilot in Concordia. And Concordia is a multi-sector, a cross-sectoral project regarding cybersecurity. But we have different pilots, and one of the pilots is focused on the financial services sector that CAIXABANK is leading it. And one of the use cases and the scenarios that we propose was this to have a platform, a better platform for this information sharing, and a platform that allows us to share this cyber threat information that provides an infrastructure for sharing these cyber attacks or cyber threats, and but also financial fraud threats, because it's something that we were interested as well, to have an homogeneous platform for sharing also this other type of information with other stakeholders from the financial sector. So what we wanted to do is to define additional specific format for the banks as well, so to incorporate new elements on taxonomies that are already there for sharing information, and well, one of the things, one of the barriers that we have said is that it's very sensitive information in some cases, especially on those fraud threats. And we are under GDPR, as all are in Europe, and we have to be very careful on which information we are sharing with whom, and which purpose is to share this information. There are some exceptions on GDPR for doing this, for sharing this sensitive information in specific cases that, for example, on preventing those frauds. But those are the very, very specific use cases in which this is allowed. So we have to be very careful on that, and we need to have a platform that allows us to be very careful on this exchange of information, of sensitive information. So what we have, we were one of these entities that has this that want to share, but have several constraints to share, and that's why we haven't shared this information with other entities before we start the project. Can you move the following slide? Okay, this is a very rough perspective, a very rough picture of the financial threat intelligence platform that we are building with some building blocks. But actually, what we wanted to create in Concordia is to some add-ons over a MISP instance. Okay, so the basis of our threat intelligence platform for financial institutions is MISP, actually. But we wanted to create a series of add-ons that can help financial institutions to use MISP for sharing information, threat intelligence information. We have also connected this MISP instance to another instance that we have from Concordia that is collecting information not only for the financial sector but other sectors, and we use this instance to connect to other pilots or other threat intelligence platforms, okay, in order to collect more information. But at the end, we want to provide, on the one hand, a very granular access to the information, a very granular access control to the information, not only based, well, that helps us not only to do the grant permissions for the information at the entity level, but a very specific role base in the entity. We want also to provide communication mechanisms through MISP that provide us to some encryption of data for some fields of the data that we are sharing. And finally, during the last year for Concordia, that we want to do is also to automate some information, some data processing, in order to create some alarms that can provide us with a playbook about what we have to do in case we detect a cyber threat. So I think that that's a rough perspective of what we have been doing in Concordia. Quite a line of what Andrea has explained in about CyberSec for Europe as well. But Jose will provide more details on this work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Ramon. So indeed, for commenting the work that we have been doing here, I would like also, I think that we had so far a very good introduction of what we wanted to do here, and let's say what are the main issues with the financial sector. So indeed, it is not the most critical one in the sense of human lives are on play here, but still it's a very critical one. So in the terms of cybersecurity, when the financial institutions started, some long years ago, they started to take advantage of all the digital world, to improve their services and the way of working, to be more communicative one with the other, etc., etc. It also brought some issues that were closely related, right, to the digital world. So we are talking basically here about cyber attacks. And in here, we are not talking only about these direct cyber attacks that could happen, but also in terms of fraud, like Ramon was commenting before, which is a bit more of indirect attack, but still it's a cyber attack that is impacting your system, right? So in there, like the financial institutions, so I would say almost any institution that was in this, let's say, life cycle, that started working mostly physical and then started to use digital services and then is dependent on digital services. When they started to be victim of cyber attacks, well, they started to notice that there was something that happened to other institutions already, or that it was some non-attacks, etc., but they didn't know because it was something, let's say, new for them, right? So then this is, I would say, when the concept of this cyber information sharing started to be more being seen as something useful that could be for all the different entities or stakeholders, companies that were living or dependent on the digital world. And for the financial entities, as you can imagine, this is much more important, right? So at the beginning, they were more focusing on not sharing information with other institutions or only by themselves, because in here, and I would like to highlight that when we are talking here about sharing information, the first thing that we have to take into account are policies, and that it was before previously mentioned by our colleagues, right? So what kind of information can we share? Can we share all the information, when a financial institution, a bank, for to say, is victim of a cyber attack? Can it share freely all the information about the cyber attack, how it came, how it happened, the impact that it had, etc., with any institution? And I'm not talking here about the law enforcement agencies, etc., but with other financial institutions, or etc., or cybersecurity organizations, in order to improve the messages, the solutions, or should be more complex because of the different policies that we have, not only at company level, but also at country level and from the GDPR, right? So if one financial institution wanted to share data, the first problem that we'll find is, okay, what data can we share? And then, is this data useful if we share it after going through all the policies of what we can and we cannot share with the institution? So it was indeed a tricky situation. So bearing in mind this context, and as this was one solution that we wanted to develop in the project of Concordia for the CAIXABANK, is, okay, let's instead of having a platform that we can, well, or let's say it sharing information without any control which information are we sharing, with whom we are sharing, for how much time we are sharing, what type of data are we sharing, etc., which is very uncontrollable and very difficult to do, because then we are asking for the providers, so for these financial institutions, to be very close, checking what information are they sharing, and checking with all the the data protection officer of the organization and for the country level, etc. Let us develop a platform that allows for the financial institution to control what data are they sharing and with whom they are sharing, at least initially, not only with whom, but with which institutions, in which area, for how much time, etc. So that way, there could be a more, let's say, mechanical or automated way between the privacy policies of the institution and the policies that are being used for sharing data, right? So instead of having to be manually checking all the data that wants to be shared, with whom I can share this or not, etc., let us have a solution that the engineers can directly say, okay, we can share this data, and for this we apply this policy, and therefore it is selected here, or it is defined here with whom we can share this data and what data we can share, right? So in this way, we used MISP indeed as the basis for the sharing of the information. And then what we did is a mechanism, so you can select the data that you want to share, and you can protect this data by encrypting it, so you are not providing it in the plane, but mostly or solely for the purpose of being able to control with whom you share the data. So if, for example, you're a victim of a cyber attack and you want to share some specific data only with, I don't know, 1 or 2 banks or other financial institutions only because you have some kind of approach with them of how to deal with this data, you could decide, or you could choose, I'm going to share this data with only this institution for this time, etc., and then this will be shared using the MISP instance, so it will be freely accessible, visible for everyone, but the portions that are only selected for the specific institutions will be the ones that are selected for sharing, okay? In this way, we follow a data-centric security approach in the way of, we are not protecting, let's say, the environments of the data where it is being shared, like the network or something like that, which will mean that we have like a very closed network of financial institutions with whom we are sharing data. And in the end will not be the more correct approach, because then we will be creating like parallel networks, right? Of we have the network of this institution and then this other network for sharing data with this other institution, and etc. Instead of that, we are going to focus on protecting, let's say, or controlling the data that we are sharing and with whom I'm sharing, and then we can use all of these general platforms for sharing the data, like as I said, for example, with the MISP instance. So that way, anyone that could access to this data, and we can share the data with all of these, or let's say the selected institution that we want. In terms of the control, we have different ways of with whom we want to share the information, and this is something that is still indeed a work in progress. As we continue working with that, we are sure that new ideas, new ways, or new needs for sharing the data will also appear. So, for example, in this way, we could share with roles, with specific users, with organizations. I think that they are, the more selected ones in a span of time. So maybe, for example, for 1 month or 2 months, we would like to share this data or this other data in a region. So we would like to share the data only in Spain, or with other institutions that we have in the of our own bank, for example, or with other financial institutions that we have some kind of agreement. In this way, as I say, the information is shared with via MISP, and it can be accessed by the allowed entities. We are going to see now in the demo for this platform, but just to give a very quick description, introduction for what we are going to see. We have different users, let's say, defined for the demos. So you can see in there, we only have, we not only have the names, but also we have the organizations, we have the user role, etc. So we can select with whom we want to share the data. For each user, this is a platform that the user can use, and they can access in there, and they can not only share the data, but also they can see the data that they have received that has been shared with them specifically. So we will have in here, because this uses MISP as a basis, we will have on the one hand, all the information shared using MISP, which is, the normal behavior to say. And on the other hand, using this platform, they could see the information that has been shared using our approach. So the one that has been share specifically with them in terms of organization or the role or etc. etc. They can also select in here for sharing the information and with whom they want to share the information. As I say, can be with a user specifically, can be organization, etc., etc. And there they can see also all the type of information that they want to share. Okay. Now we are going to see this interface a bit more in working. But as you can see in here, this is for sharing the information. We select the events that we want to define. We can select the information for the files that we want to share, etc., etc. We can select with whom, from the date, etc., etc. And then using the MIS instance, we can just share it in the with the MIS, and then the other users are able to receive it like in real time. So as being this built on top of the MIS instance, it takes all the capabilities, all the benefits of the MIS instance, but applying this layer in order, as I say, to be able to tackle and to work with all the different policies that may exist due to data privacy. So that will be my introduction. Esteban, if you would like to share the screen.
Yeah, there you go. Can you see my screen? I hope
yeah,
so.
Yeah, we can see.
All right, perfect. So basically, following what my colleagues are saying about the platform, let me show a brief functionality. I mean, the main functionalities of the platform. So let's log into the system. On the other tab, we have the MISP instance of the project. So we can also see how the events are coming from the platform, right? So basically, I'm logging with my user, and basically we have in the first page we have a basic dashboard in which we have the events that are shared with me, the information received, let's say. And in the other tab, we have the information that we, or in this case, me, has shared to other users or organizations in this project and in the system as well. So on the other hand, we have this menu with basic configuration and information, such as the main configuration in which I can add the instance from. I am able to retrieve the information, in this case, the instance of the project. Then I have to provide the API keys to access the instance, and also I can put like a static, if I want to, static information in order to add to the events created in MISP. Okay, so. Then, since I am an administrator of the platform, I also can see the user that is already existing in the system, so I can add a new one if it's needed as well. So let's jump into the main part of the test. So if I want to share information to someone. Either in my organization or outside of my organization, but within the project, in this case, in the project Concordia. First of all, I just need to add a brief event information. So basically, let's say critical information from me, just to be clear, and to another user, in this case, Alice. So basically, I'm going to share information to Alice. I can choose, and it's mandatory to share, in this case, uncritical information, let's say, like internal information in my organization. Let me just share this PDF with Alice. Then I have to choose whether it's a person, is an organization, or a role within this platform. So basically, in this case, I want to share just with Alice, and I will put also a time window, sorry, to access the event. So starting from today until, let's say, tomorrow. Okay. So now I just share this information to Alice. And we we can jump into the platform, to MIS platform, and we can see that right now it's share the information to Alice. The event is the event 51 in this case. If we go to the shared information, we can see that is the event 51. If I try to access using my user, let's say, I can't. So basically, right now the information is protected. Also, if I try to read the information storage in the MISP instance, I can't as well because it's cipher. It's encrypted. Sorry, it's encrypted with the private key from the user who I share with. So basically, the only person who can access this information is Alice. So let's jump into the account of Alice. Okay. So let's say that I don't want to save the password. And now in my dashboard, I can see that this is the information that I have received from Esteban in this case, since I am Alice. And also, I am the only one who can download the information encrypted, okay, and share it with me. In this case, the PDF. So if I want to download to read the information that Esteban in this case shared with me, I can see that this in the downloads. Sorry, the window is in the other. Okay, so you can see it because I just shared the browser application window. So here you can see this the document that I downloaded from the system. And if I want to share, in this case, from Alice to all the organization, in this case ATOS, from Alice to ATOS, let's say that it's the same document, for example, and I just want to share with all the people within ATOS. So let's do it. So as well, I can add different tags from the MISP instance. So if you want to add a different taxonomy as well, you can do it by adding in the tags field in the formulary, in the form. Sorry. And if you enable this in the MISP instance, you will have all the tags from the MISP instance in the system as well. So since I am Alice and I also belong to the organization ATOS, I will receive also one of the events shared with ATOS organization. So basically, if you can see, we went from the 51, which is the last event that I create, to the 57, which is all the members of ATOS organization in the system. So basically, each of this information is encrypted and only can be accessed by each of these people that belongs to the organization. So I can access as well, since I belong to the organization, but someone who can try to retrieve the information from the MISP instance, it will he can be able to read or to access the information in the system. So with that, we can bring this security level that we are talking earlier about the sensitive information related directly to the business at a granular level, okay, and also using a MISP instance as a system to work with the events that they are already, in this case, the financial institution, they use as well. So I don't know if you have any questions regarding this demo or the system as well.
No questions. Thank you, Esteban. Jose, as you may see, we focus on the this is the demo only of some of the features that that the platform that we are doing provides. Other features are also cover the collecting data from other sources, like for example from social networks like Twitter, and generate entries on the MISP based on the keywords that you has included in Twitter, or in this or in the social network that you select. And but what we focus on this demo was about the role management and encryption of data over MISP that provides you a dashboard, much more simplified dashboard in which all the people that are exchanging threat intelligence information can know exactly to whom has shared information, and you can also select a period of time in which this information will be available, and encrypt specific parts of the information, and so on. Well, after those examples, I will go to the panel in which I will invite to open the cam to the presenters, as well to Rosen that has joined us afterwards, and Mario, you are still here as well. Hi, Rosen. Good morning.
Hello.
The rest of the presenters, please. We still have with us Andrea. Oh, Andrea is not here anymore. Okay. So yeah, he's here. Andrea, can you?
Yeah.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, and John. Mario. Oh no, Mario is not here anymore. Okay, he has another meeting. Okay, so I just want to have a little bit more of discussion of the needs and the state right now of the threat intelligence information sharing around Europe in the financial services sector. And we didn't have so many questions in the during the workshop, but I will make some of that to you. You, John, has a slide in which you has depict a little bit about the state of maturity of the threat intelligence, and how at the beginning was more like a push from the technical side, and now it's law driven at this point. Was starting to be law driven, and but we haven't achieved yet this point in which is business driven. What do you think? Well, I suppose you, as you said, John, we are not at this point. What do you think the others, Andrea, Rosen?
Interesting question. I think at the current situation, there is a lot of threat intelligence that is being offered, coming in to the different communities, the finance as well, and I would say even more to the finance than to the others. The thing is now the situation comes to the fact that there needs to be a proper way to filter through this information, and what are you going to do with this information? So we're seeing now, and I'm very happy to see the platform that is being built here. There is a way to share this information. The thing is, what are you doing with this information after? And are you putting it into a automated system? Is it going through another person to assess it, to decide what would be the action after? So I think Now the automation needs to be done to work, and I'm happy to see that there is an API is open and there is a possibility to connect to outside world. And for this, I really I'm happy to see that this is happening. Now I would like to see the exchange of information and what is going to be the next step. So, and how we're going to open to other sectors as well, because obviously finance is one of the sectors that is way ahead when we're talking about IT infrastructure, IT attacks, and so on and so forth. But your expertise can be also used in other sectors, and also you can receive information from other sectors. So I would like to see this happening and trying to organize, let's say, like a possibility that information is quickly shared, like an early warning, even if you want to, between different sectors, between different communities. So this way we can protect, Europe and even the world better. So I think for me, the next steps now, automation and what are we doing with this data and how we are filtering through this data is very important. And this is where the business case come in as well. Because the companies will be able to actually have this information and bring it up to a higher level, to the executive level, and show them what is the effect and how we're protected against this. So I think this is also the connection there with the executive level.
Anything to add, Andrea, John?
I really like the point about filtering, and I think my focus is not at the technical, at the platform level, because I think there's a lot of offers, there's a lot of solutions out there that help. Our friends in the US tend to be very focused, for example, in standards on OASIS and Styx Taxi, whereas in Europe we tend to be much more focused on MISP as a growing a collaboration platform. And I think what we're seeing is a very, very good convergence between various standards and platforms. And as Ralston rightfully pointed out, hi, by the way, I think the fact if there's an API, that's always a good step. For me, the more important thing is really, I keep saying this, is at the process, as the policy level, at the usability level. And this is, I think, is where, for example, the national CSIRTs play a very, very important role, because these are the entities that are able to take the information that is shared and turn it into something actionable. Where, for example, if you have a small, a Gassa in Italy, or a broker dealer in Germany, or a regional insurance firm that has the secretary is also the IT, is also the CISO, they can't handle an intel feed. They need an easy set of instructions, a good baseline of, checklist of what do I do, and they need a regular breakdown of what is the major thing that's happening right now and how do I deal with it. So once we have the actual technical interchange level and the standards where we are sharing, identifying, processing, correlating, and automating information exchange, that then has to be turned for the smaller organization into a so what. What do we actually, okay, fine, we've got all this stuff now, give it to me for dummies, And I think that's going to be the next level where we're able to give the broadest community of European financial services firms the ability to actually do their part by not overburdening them with too much stuff. I think that's something that we do currently. But I think that's something to pay attention to in the future. And that's where, by the way, and by the way, for everybody on this call who's a subject matter expert, this is why we have job security in the cybersecurity field, because you're never going to remove the subjective human interaction to turn this into something that's actually readable and consumable by exactly these people who don't have the automation capability. Fingers crossed on the job security side, by the way.
I agree with my colleagues, but I had a little vision. Remember the constraint about privacy for sharing the information is one important key, and we must use the information proactively. We must anticipate the events or incident. This is the key in our vision. the information are really important, but we must use it correctly, really correctly anticipate the problem.
Can I make a comment about that very quickly though? I think it's a very good point. I shared with Mario the GDPR analysis paper that we did with a law firm a few years ago. I mentioned that in chat. What our finding was, and I'm not a lawyer, all right, tell me I'm totally wrong here, I welcome it, was that GDPR stopping information, whether it's threat information, fraud information, actor identity, whatever sharing, was much more a question of fear rather than the actual law saying you can't do this. The European Banking Federation did a survey about 2 years ago where they actually solicited from financial services firms, please give us specific instances where you were not able to share information because of GDPR. I don't think they got any responses. We helped them reach out. I think a lot of it is because one thing that always makes people laugh when I ask it, what is the default answer of the lawyer in the company when you ask them, can I share this information? Yeah, right, exactly. I don't think it's because the GDPR is actually really sensibly written. If you read it, it is really, really well developed and has a lot of carve-outs for this. The problem is that not only, to my knowledge, are there no European-wide judicial precedents yet, which say clearly, yes, the European Court of Justice has said you cannot do this. But also, here's the thing, the European regulators have not yet issued clear guidance to us. Okay, guys, we've looked at it. Okay, we've made the law. This is what it actually means.
Mm-hmm. No,
so
and actually,
we're flying blind.
Yeah, and actually, we found differences in the perspective and the position of the regulators depending on the state, on the member state. Because there are different regulators and probably different people, and they, in some cases, they accept some exchange of information in some way, and others are not that are more strict on that, and they want to overwatch everything and even block in some cases some exchange of information. But I have to say, in any case, that in Spain there's an initiative for sharing information about fraud that is being reviewed by the regulator, by Banco de España, and is led by Payward. That's, I think that is something that we are starting to test. Actually, it's not completely deployed now, but there are most of the financial entities have joined this initiative and are willing to have this platform for sharing this information. Okay, it's a good. I think it will be a good opportunity, and we'll see if it's fruitful at the end. But I will like also to ask you. Well, you have said that the barriers mainly are trust, are the amount of data, as I said, the need of automation of this, the need of filtering of this, and also the sensitivity of the data that we are sharing in most of the cases. So what do you think we all as financial institutions can do to lose these constraints that we have right now? Any suggestions, or probably any? What is your perspective, or how are you dealing with that, Andrea, in INTESA?
We are looking to create or to implement the creation of a European hub. Should be the key to manage and sharing this kind of information. I think the only way to support is this.
What do you think, Russell?
Yeah, well, what we have seen is actually that trust is built among people who know themselves. So for us, trying to organize meetings so people can see who they're talking on the other side seem to bring more trust. And also what we have noticed is additionally that the circle cannot be too big because people can know only so many people. So the smaller the circle is, the better it is in terms of information sharing and knowing who is on the other side. So in our work with the different ISACs, we have seen that it makes sense that smaller groups are organized by thematic area, by sector, by specific attributes that you can give. So, for instance, the financial sector is very wide ecosystem. We have stock exchanges, insurance companies, if you want to, central counterparties, and so on and so forth. They cannot be all part of one big circle. So our suggestion is create small circles, but then have the connection between the different circles with the bigger ones. So this way you can have the connection and you can have the notification if something has been seen by one of these small circles, then it can quickly be, let's say, redistributed to all the others. But this way, the trust is being kept because not all people know everyone. And having a big circle usually is not very helpful. So that is very important. And then the other thing that we are aware is the connection with between the public and the private part. So we obviously have regulators. We obviously have law enforcement even. So the connection between the public and the private part should also be done with some considerations there. So for instance, not having the regulatory part of being part of the circle is very important because sharing information where you feel, let's say, intimidated by the fact that there is a public authority that could impose any fines to you is also not very constructive, let's say, of this circle. So of course, we have seen that there is a public authorities that they could be part of these information sharing circles, but not with their, let's say, regulatory part. They could be with their SOC part, if they have a SOC, or with any, other unit that is not the one that is imposing fines. So this way they can still receive this information and they can build policy on this because they are aware that the things that are happening that needs to be addressed if this is the case. But really the information, the connection between the public and the private communities has to be also done very well.
That's a really good point about the public-private side. I mean, I think the most important thing is rules and norms. You have to have very, very clear rules so you can set expectations. But the regulators, I mean, let's be honest, the regulator, or let's say the supervisor, not the people who make the rules, but the people who enforce the rules, they have no business exchanging threat intel. That's not their job. Their job is stabilizing society. They should be talking about things like developing and implementing frameworks at a higher level. We run something called the Ceres Forum that I coordinate for central banks and regulators. And the whole point is that they cannot join these exchanges because that's not what they're, I know threat intel is sexy. I know, talking about TrickBot is sexy. It's more fun than talking about, cybersecurity regulation, but that's not what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah. So there are some countries, I mean, for example, the Netherlands is a good one, Australia, where national certs and law enforcement are openly invited and encouraged by members to join, for example, meetings where there's a TLP-read session. So you have to be adaptable. Rostin's point, I think, about the large versus small organization, this this hits home because, for us, we're a massive global consortium, and what we've had to do is we've had to avoid, at the same time, we had to balance avoiding balkanization with lots of small local sharing groups with the ability to quickly and effectively share globally when there are campaigns that move between regions. I think the solution there is to build and maintain and respect local sharing groups, whether they're shared, as Rostin mentioned, between industry actors, types of industries, whether small firms or insurances or whatever, or large banks, or geographically. I mean, why does a small savings bank in Slovenia care about what is happening in Brazil? Yeah. But at the same time, I think what's important is organizations like us have a responsibility to engage with these local actors, the local CSIRTs, and build operational relationships so that we can feed as well as receive information from local actors who don't get any benefit from engaging in the big global exchange, even beyond the simple trust question. You know, the question there is fundamentally the big challenge there is funding, because Intel analysts cost a lot of money, if you're doing them right. And you know, how do you fund your global stuff and at the same time support the local guys, even if it's indirectly? These are problems that nobody has a good answer for yet. We don't, nobody does. But I think the respect for the dichotomy between small local groups and global sharing is one that actually makes this exchange work if these norms and rules are clear, in our case, traffic light protocol.
Yeah, I think you commented exactly what I was going to ask to Rosen about how we can do it if we go for very small clusters, very small cyc circles. At the end, we will not share the information globally, and how that will not work. But I think that you go into depth on how the things can work. Another thing that is those platforms that we show to you could be very managed distributedly. And what do you think will be the best approach for exchanging the information through this, or probably is a hybrid and a mixture of everything, but through organizations, in your case, John, you will see for sure through a main organization that helps you to share the information with others, or directly distributed between the entities, or would be feasible at the end to completely have it completely distributed without any intermediary or any neutral entity that manages those platforms?
Yeah, that's a different question, a difficult question, but in my opinion, asking anyone to distribute information to anyone is not feasible, in my opinion. This will double the information in many cases, and you will receive maybe 2 or 3 or even more times the same information. So having one where you share this information, you decide if you want to distribute it outside of the circle, is much, in my opinion, is going to help with the wealth of information that is coming from everywhere. And of course, this will require some sort of validation if this information is really truthful and it should be shared outside. So this way, we will also filter out the information that is already there, maybe, or has been shared before. So in my opinion, it makes sense to have these circles where this information is shared within and then is validated. Now, how it's going to be shared outside with other circles is another story. That's really a problem that we are trying to solve here in ENISA as well, especially across different types of communities, and how this is going to happen, because there are different maturities in the different communities. So the information flow between these communities needs to be somehow maybe predefined, because I'm not sure if all the communities will be able to ingest this information and actually do something with it. So there might be specific procedures, if you want to call them, or policies, how to share information outside with the different circles, because they require different information, they require different maybe fields even. So I'm not saying that there is going to be a one taxonomy that we are all going to use. This, in my opinion, will never happen. But a way that we can translate this is something that is important, or maybe have a framework how we want to work with it. this could help. And again, this is not easy. I don't know who will be able to maintain this, especially if we're going to open it to other sectors outside of even the financial, because obviously we, as ENISA, we're working with energy, with transport, with, satellites, for instance. How they're going to ingest this information? Is this going to be enough for them? Are they needing something else? And this is going to be difficult. So I do think that there should be a smaller circles where the information should be validated and shared and then eventually distributed outside. But then how it is going to be ingested by the others is something that I don't have an answer for now, but maybe the others can help here.
I'll respectfully partially disagree with Rostin on that, but you knew that was coming. We've known each other for a while, so we've got this going. No, I think it depends on the consuming organization. And again, this is where, for example, the National CSIRT network comes in. Again, that ENISA has done a phenomenal job of helping enhance maturity, especially at a national level. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. Andrea, INTESA San Paolo is a massive organization. You guys are very mature. You have a lot of capability. There will always be overlap. There will always be questions about reliability. You will always have to do again, this is job security for the Intel guys, right? This is what we do. And the point I think is, I will agree with you violently in the case of, again, the smaller organizations who don't have that capability, who don't have the resources, nor should they. And again, this is where I don't care if it's the national CSIRT or the one vendor or whatever comes in. What hits them, what the information they get has to be digested, easily consumable, simple language, and whoever that comes from, as long as it's reliable, consistent, and capable, whatever, doesn't matter, right? It has to speak their language. For the big organizations, though, I expect a GSIP, a large reinsurer, a large, an FMI, to be able to participate in multiple sharing circles, especially if they have a global or regional presence. They're going to have to be part of much more contextually rich sharing circles. And I expect them to also be able to filter much better and differentiate between different sources. And I think what happens is there has to be also an understanding that there's a difference between commoditized intelligence, analyzed, broken down into the human readable side of things, and what is the business impact. Intelligence, right? It's not all threat intelligence. Most of it is threat information. It's data. And this raw data, which we consume from whatever various feeds. And that's when you build your filtering mechanisms, your tips, your correlation machinery, whatever. And you're always going to have multiple sources of that. Yeah. But if you're a large organization, you had better have the resources in the process to ingest, analyze, prioritize, and process that information. No matter how many different sharing groups you're part of. I do agree with Rosina also very, very strongly that it'll never be super duper clean. It's messy. It's always going to be messy. We can make it as clean as we can, but as standardized, and that's why we're talking right now. But there will always be a certain amount of very, very subjective, very, very bespoke activity required on, especially on behalf of the more capable organizations.
Great. Actually, we had we had in the agenda some time now for other questions from the participants. So if anyone else want to join us in the discussion or provide any other question to the panelists. No. Okay, I don't know if you want to have the other panelists other questions or comments or any other topic that you want to point out. No? Okay, in that case, I will close the workshop here. I will really thank you, all the participants, all the panelists for collaborating in this workshop. And well, I will wish you as well Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays in the new coming week, and a Happy New Year as well. Hopefully, with less restrictions of COVID and and with a better situation in all Europe, okay, and all the world. Thank you so much. Thank you much, everybody. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Guys, thank you so much for the invite.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.